like I'm almost the least interested in the food and I'm most interested in everything else. I'm like, what is the scene here? What, like we said, what story are they trying to tell? Who decided to create this restaurant and what's their story and why are they doing it this way?
Assume that people are only going to read it on social and then tell your stories social first, or tell your stories for the medium first. Go to where the audiences are.
I want to eat around India with both of you.
Yes.
Please come.
That should be...
I'm trying to get the Times to send me to Mumbai, so stay tuned.
Amazing.
Yeah. We'll just hijack you for a couple of weeks and take you around the rest of the country.
I'd love it.
Ever wondered what food critics and writers really think beyond a restaurant review? In this episode, I'm getting into all of it with two people I greatly admire. Priya Krishna, author and reporter at the New York Times, and Anisha Rachel Oommen, the co-founder of India's most loved indie food publication, Goya Journal. Who is food writing really for? How do you balance access and critique? And what happens when journalism, virality, and community all collide on the same plate? In the final episode for this season, Priya, Anisha, and I dig into the state of food media today, the gaps, the grind, and the possibilities of what it could become. This episode is fact-checked, double-spiced, and just the right amount of sweet, which means the Bombay Bhel Chikki by Bombay Sweet Shop was the only sensible pairing. Hi, Priya and Anisha, and welcome to Big Food Energy.
Hi.
So excited to be talking to you guys.
Of course, I'm so thrilled to have the opportunity to speak to the two of you together. It's really not often that food journalists come together in front of a bunch of mics, so I'm really quite excited about this. Okay, so just let's dive straight into it. You've both spoken about different ways about how food is a window into systems, whether it's caste or class or gender or even identity. I want to start with, what is the role of a food journalist today? Is it to explain, to contextualize, to critique, to report? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think all of the above. I think you said report, critique, contextualize, explain. Yes, I think all of those things. I like to think that people who read my stories, like, you can be interested in food or not, but they're just interesting stories. I also feel like food is a really compelling way in to talk about really complex issues. I'm working on a piece about gentrification in Mexico City, but I'm doing it through the lens of how the dining scene has changed and how restaurants have changed. And so, I feel like if you haven't read anything about the protests that are happening about gentrification in that city, you can read about food in restaurants and it feels like a more digestible way to like understand these complex issues. And I've done that around politics, around religion, around sports. That's sort of why I got into food journalism, and it's why I think it is like one of the most compelling forms of writing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I also think that, like someone said that critics are the most optimistic people out there because they believe a better version of what exists is possible. And so I think that a large part of it is thinking about possibility and what we could do. And in the Indian context, I feel like food is the last place where we can have many conversations that are not possible in other spaces. And I think that makes food a really special place because in a way it brings people together. It sort of gets everyone's guard down. And we're talking about things that would otherwise be really sensitive and really touchy. And if it's the last bastion of these conversations, then I feel like that's a very heavy mantle to carry, and I'm proud that we are in that space and we're able to have those conversations.
100%.
Anisha, I'm curious if there's like an example where you felt like there was a sensitive conversation where food felt like the only way in, because I think what you said about it being like the last bastion of like being able to have these hard conversations, especially in India, is interesting.
I don't know if we're supposed to say these things, but I feel like all the conversations on these politically touchy subjects, like certain kinds of meat, or whether it's minority communities, or whether it's certain cuts of meat that are available only to people of a certain economic class, these all become conversations that are taboo, that nobody wants to address, that are that get everybody really het up. And I feel like it's sort of a sideways entry into topics of politics, of power, of caste, of access and privilege. And I think it allows people to think about these things differently. And so that's an opportunity that we can't let go of. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I remember in 2019, was it around the time that there were all these citizenship protests, the CEA protests, and a lot of people were covering the protests. But I loved what Goya did, which is you covered the kitchen that was feeding people at the protest.
Yeah.
And it was such a good in to, to that entire conversation,
Yeah,
which,
yeah.
Otherwise was just so hard to touch.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, just some of the posters out there said everything. There was like no farmers, no food. And when we talk about communities on the sideline and their protests and revolutions happening all around the world, they're all being fed by a community kitchen that is feeding the revolution, right? And that's when people are setting aside everything, all differences, and coming together to support the common cause. I mean, that's a very fundamental, primal, uniting need that we come together for. So I thought that's pretty powerful.
Yep. No, absolutely. And okay, so linked to this conversation that we're having, I want to talk about like the food media landscape, or really the media landscape right now. The media landscape seems to be having a bit of an identity crisis. People aren't reading. AI is coming for our jobs. But also there seems to be a split between reporting and spending time and investing in the stories that matter. I'm wondering how the two of you are dealing with the challenges of telling stories that matter, with shortened attention spans, with the fact that nobody's really reading. How do you sort of navigate these challenges as writers and editors?
I mean, at Goya, we honestly, I felt like we were, at some point we had all our audiences coming into the website, and then that changes because people are consuming content entirely on social media. And I think it's also about adapting to the tools and being quick to them. We have a couple of people who were really, really clever and early on that to say, you have to assume no one is going to come to the website to read long form. Maybe the guys who subscribe to your newsletter will, and they will be the the hardcore loyal audience that does that. But assume that people are only going to read it on social, and then tell your stories social first, or tell your stories for the medium first. Go to where the audiences are. And I think that was, I'm really bad with change. I don't know about you guys. That was really hard for me to accept. But the second we adopted it and we saw the change and we saw the way that the audiences were responding, it was enough. The story matters more than the medium, and we have to take that into account.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I feel like for me, I am focused on telling fewer but better stories. Stories that feel like they have the kind of like depth and complexity that you could never get from like a social post or a 30-second video. And I found that those are the stories that are doing a lot better than like the shorter, simpler ones, the ones that really aren't afraid to dive deep. But then at the same time, like even those stories, you have to figure out a way to create the like 30-second video version, to create like what is the Instagram slideshow version of that. Yeah. And so for pretty much every single story I do, I'm meeting with our social team and we're coming up with what is a way to promote this. And so like basically all of us have just become multimedia reporters, and I think that's the only way that we'll survive.
Yeah. And I think it's actually interesting because from what we've noticed, it's not that the sillier or the dumber stories survive. It's actually, we've had super nerdy stories, super niche stories that travel really far.
Yeah,
because
agreed.
So I found that kind of encouraging, and that made me embrace the format more actually.
Yeah, 100%. What do you guys think about AI? Is AI coming for food media?
Not yet. Not yet, because I feel like maybe AI is not there yet, because the way that we are using AI, I think it can be a great tool to help us get rid, at least the way I'm seeing it, it's getting rid of a lot of the grunt work.
Yeah.
And we can focus on the thinking work or the strategy work or the deeper thinking of a story and the hook. But it's still a tool. I don't think it's going to replace us, is my sense.
Yeah, I think that people still value recipes written by people. I think people still value like the idea of like there's a person behind this, or like I feel like people still treat individuals with a sense of like you are an expert. And so I trust your dal recipe, I trust your spaghetti recipe, and I'd like to ensure that that remains true. I do wonder if like for like the generation after Gen Z, that the idea of like human expertise will become less important. But I still feel like for the current generations, like people are really important.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, it's interesting that you brought up human expertise, because I wanted to talk about restaurant reviews, and what is the point of a review even today, considering that so much of food media, especially on social media, is kind of entertaining, and so much of how we interact with food is baked into the idea of entertainment. How do you obviously in the US and abroad it's slightly different, where publications have budgets to review a place anonymously for say 3 times over, 10 times over, but in India that's just not the case. So very often a journalist might be invited to a restaurant, and then you do a preview with everyone knowing that you're there, and it's kind of written up as like a semi-interview, semi-tasting. So within that context, like I'd love to hear from the two of you about like what you think the point of a review is. Like, are we context building? Are we critiquing? Like, what are we doing?
Well, but I'm also really curious, like for you, like how it works in India. Like I have no idea.
When I was food editor at Conrad's Traveler, like the sort of point of the food review was to contextualize what that restaurant was doing in the local environment, what the chef was trying to do, what his or her story was or is, whether that restaurant adds anything to the local restaurant scene in terms of, is it pushing a boundary, is it trying to do anything? So it wasn't so much about like the taste of the food. It wasn't so much about like, this souffle didn't stand straight or whatever. But it was more about the story that the restaurant was trying to tell, and the larger story and the larger narrative that within which the restaurant existed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that like restaurant reviews here in the States are the same. I always like to say that like I'm kind of, the food is obviously very important, but I'm kind of like I'm almost the least interested in the food. And I'm most interested in everything else. I'm like, what is the scene here? What, like we said, what story are they trying to tell?
Yeah.
Who decided to create this restaurant and what's their story and why are they doing it this way? But like, I think for me, I don't know that the point of a review is explicitly about rendering judgment. I feel like I try to treat reviews as like, I am giving you a complete picture of what you can expect and what this restaurant is like, and you decide whether that's something that is appealing to you. Like, sure, I will say, like, the fish was overcooked. But at the end of the day, I'm realizing that people just, like, want to get a sense of, like, what the place is like. And then they want to make their own decisions. And I think that criticism is very important for those reasons. That said, like, there's a reason I don't do criticism anymore. And I think it's because, like, I find the realm of, like, storytelling around food rather than just, like, explicitly criticism to be far more interesting and expansive.
Yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying. But linked to linked to this idea of restaurant reviews and telling stories, I want to talk a little bit about PR and how like tangled relationships are right now, like how the lines are so blurred between work that seems like a brand plug and coverage. There are these blurry lines about between being close enough to get the story, but not too close that you lose your critical lens. How do each of you think about that boundary between and this relationship between responsibility while also maintaining a relationship? Like, say maybe 15 years ago, you couldn't be a friend, you couldn't be friends with a chef, but now you can. How do you kind of maintain that boundary while still sort of having your own critical voice?
I love that you are asking the hard questions, by the way.
I mean, these are things that I'm constantly
Yeah.
thinking about, like just sitting at home and being like, I wonder how everyone else does it.
Yeah. Oh my God. I feel like, yes, we need a support group on this. But, just thinking about what Priya said, I know that she's giving a very broad storytelling narrative. And sometimes I feel like our role when we're reviewing restaurants is so much bigger. But as somebody who's doing it less and who has to eat out a lot, and Bombay is so expensive, I will not try a new restaurant unless someone I trust absolutely has recommended to me. Because I don't want to drop
100%.
like $8,000 on a mediocre meal because that makes me really mad. So I think there is a core value there that we can't disregard. But with PR, I feel like, at least at where we are now, we can say I'm going to go there and because I know that that's a relationship we have to maintain. So I'm going to try to make a priority of showing up and being present for that experience or that meal. But I think that, Goya has taken 10 years. So I'm going to be like, I'm going to maybe promise the coverage based on what the experience is like. I can't do that upfront.
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time to get there. And it takes a lot of courage also to still say that out loud right now. But I try to do that because I feel like at the end of the day, what's on the line is the reputation and the trust we have with the audience and the readers. And that's what we have to make number one, right?
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I am very lucky to work for like a large corporation that has resources where like if there's never a question of like, we never accept free meals. We're like, we're really not allowed to do a lot of things. And even when I know a chef, I try to keep a wall up. Same thing with publicists. I don't I just like don't hesitate to do because I'm just like, well, I'd rather just be your cheerleader, but not, have to deal with, the ethical squishiness that comes with like covering someone who I might be friends with. But, you're totally right that it is a tricky balance. Like you want to be the person that someone comes to when there's something going on that you should know about. But like, I totally agree with Anisha. Like my responsibility is always to my readers. I always abide by the principle of like, if a source is 100% happy with this story, it's just PR. Like, I want to be bringing like skepticism and a critical eye to everything I'm writing. I'm not accepting what they're telling me as like, this is true and fair. I'm always looking to bring in like a multitude of perspectives and voices. And I think like, I try to be really thoughtful about like who I pick to be those voices. I don't know. I just like, I feel that that's like the reader has to be number one. Like it just has to. I think everything Anisha said is like absolutely right. And I also think like, listen, if you're a good publicist, you understand. You understand that journalists are not mere mouthpieces for you. Same with chefs.
Yeah, 100%. What I found though in the recent past, I think maybe past couple of years, has been that chefs and restaurateurs are starting to interact with journalists like content creators. So there is a certain amount of expectation of, we'll give you access, you give us publicity. But if there are critical things to say, say that to me in private. But don't say it to me in public, on a platform, because then are you really serving the greater good of supporting the industry?
Wow.
which is kind of taken me by surprise.
Yeah.
So I feel, I don't know, maybe it's an India thing. Maybe people don't see the value so much in journalism. Maybe just because there are, especially when it comes to like new restaurant coverage, there are so many content creators lining up
Right.
at the door to be like, hey, can I come cover you? And can I do like this sexy reel about like this hottest opening in Bandra? And so then, that sort of thing is ticked off on their list that, okay, I'm getting talked about. I don't know if there is enough value placed on what journalists are bringing to the table, especially when it comes to this realm. This might be my highly critical, highly jaded self-talking. But yeah, I feel like increasingly people are very happy to have creators come check out their new restaurants.
I mean, that's treating our audiences like they're really dumb, because
Exactly.
I'm also a consumer of these reviews, and so I feel like if everything is positive, I'm going to be super suspicious of it. And I always look at, is this a person who's writing for themselves? Is it writing for someone else? Who is their, where does their allegiance lie? And then I assess the review, or I do my takeaways. So I feel like you're doing an audience a disservice by doing that, and that's why I feel like the value of a journalist is still very present, because you're not a PR plug. You are bringing someone onto critical skills and expertise to the subject, and I'm reading it for that. Are you not finding that, Priya?
Well, I think I sometimes do wonder if viewers are aware that content creators are often not paying for their meals, are
Yeah.
getting things for free. I do feel that like we, the New York Times, could do a much better job explaining to people why they should trust us versus a content creator, saying we pay for our meals, we visit restaurants 3 times, we use different names to book our reservations. We're not coming in with like a lighting setup.
Yeah.
Like, I think we could be doing a better job of that. I really, really do. There are people who did not realize that I wrote written reviews and thought I just did video reviews because we post our videos to TikTok. And they would come up to me and say, I loved your review of Carbone. I watched it. And I'm like, what? So like, I think we need to do a better job being like, this is why you
Yeah.
should trust us over, this, this person armed with a ring light showing up at restaurants they were invited to. I do.
It's amazing you're saying that.
And you don't think that's true in India?
100% true.
No, I just assume that in an age where like the Michelin review process is so transparent now because of all the shows and the the movies and the docus that we have out there, you would think that people knew this. But Priya's saying that we actually need to call out why we are credible. And maybe that's true.
Yeah.
But I mean, while we're kind of talking about this, through the work that the two of you have done, you've both touched upon who the real guardians and gatekeepers of food are, in terms of whether it's communities, people from specific communities, people who identify with a particular gender. How do you both think about food media and the platform it provides in terms of who gets platformed, who gets paid, who gets published, and what can people do with platforms that they have to ensure more diverse representation? Priya, I know that you've done a lot of work around this, especially with the platforms that you've had at Bon Appetit and now at New York Times, in that regard. But I'd love to know, what that sort of felt like when you were in it and like fighting for it.
It honestly, like here in America, it feels like we've backtracked. Like it really does. I mean, diversity, equity, and inclusion is sort of a bad word now in government. Like it is, programs are being dismantled left and right. I felt really optimistic when I was fighting for better pay, more equity in representation and leadership back then. And now I'm increasingly just like trying to create the most change with the platform that I have. like trying to affect change on a personal level rather than a systemic level, because in the absence of broader institutional support for diversity, inclusion, and equity, I feel that it's up to all of us as individuals to like do what we can within our power. So that's what my focus is right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Anisha? How are you looking at? I mean, diversity and representation is a whole other conversation in India, in terms of who writes about food, and which communities get represented, and and which castes get represented. How do you navigate all of that at Goya?
I mean, sometimes I feel like we're this small voice in the corner, and I'm like, are we having any impact at all? Because I feel like we started Goya based on this idealistic idea of spotlighting people who were actually doing all the work but not being celebrated or not even being acknowledged, right?
Yeah.
And the people who are doing it are very often people on the margins. They're women, they are widows, they are, communities that whose cuisines are not even documented. So these are undocumented oral traditions that are being passed down. And I mean, every year what we're doing is telling those stories. And I know that media has a certain amount of power to tell these stories in a way that makes it glamorous and change the cultural context and change even culture and behavior. And so I don't fully see the impact of it, but I'm just going on faith right now. But I think that we have to believe that what the story, because honestly, the impact that we have are just the emails that we get, and people think, oh my God, I never thought I would see an Odia recipe for XYZ up on Goya. And then I'm like, oh, there is a small ripple effect happening over here, and that's what I'm going to hang on to. But I feel like change is always small, and we have to, a lot of times we're operating on faith.
Okay, cool. Linked to what you were saying about Odia recipes and who decides what gets platformed. I'd love to know what the two of you think good taste is. There's a lot of, in the context of restaurants, like we were talking about earlier, restaurant reviews are now being seen as social currency. It's often, chicer to post about the fact that you were at a restaurant than, I don't know, buy a labubu. So in a lot of ways, who defines what good taste is, and what does it mean when so much of it is kind of performance through social media?
Oh, wow, that is a hard one.
Sorry.
Priya, you can take that one first.
Priya is like, it's too early in the morning. To send some martinis your way.
It's so funny. I actually wrote my thesis on the idea of good taste, which was actually a notion invented kind of, or at least written down for the first time by French people. And what I learned was that the French did not come to dominate the culinary conversation, not because French food is particularly incredible. It's because they were really good at writing things down and codifying themselves as we are the arbiters of good taste.
Wow, interesting.
So, like, I've always found that notion of taste to be really complicated and almost like the word authentic, in that, like, I don't know that it really has meaning anymore. Everyone has taste.
Yeah.
Is it good? Who can say? Like, it's sort of just all just like a matter of perspective. I think for me, good taste, when people are like, what makes you have good taste? What makes you have the ability to evaluate restaurants? It's because I've been to thousands and thousands of restaurants. It's because I've tried tons of food. It's because I've researched all of these cuisines. It's because I've traveled around the world. Like, sometimes I just feel that, like, good taste is experience, curiosity, and a willingness to have your mind changed.
No, 100%.
Yeah. But I feel like taste has also been gatekept in many ways, right? Because when I think about things that are not, say, European or West-centric, even just language, right? If we think about the way that we explain dosa as like a
Oh
crap.
God, drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I will never explain a dosa in that way. It's infuriating.
Yeah.
Dosa's
And
dosa.
those are, yeah. And I feel like we don't explain pasta, right? It's understood that
Exactly.
you better know what a pasta is, or you're the one who's out of the loop, right? And so I feel like it would be really radical to change that idea of who owns good taste. Because if even the idea and even the idea of Indian English, for so long, I battled with the idea of I battled with the way that Indians wrote prose, because I felt like, oh, should we change this word out? Should we maybe substitute this sentence or this word with an explanation that is more universally appealing and understandable? And then slowly I came to the idea that Indian English is its own English, and it's as legitimate and has a space in the lexicon that it deserves, and it is beautiful in its own right. It has as much depth and complexity and nuance as any other language, and we should treat it like that. And the minute I understood it in terms of photography, because that was easier for me to understand, I could see photographers looking at things in an Indian kitchen that I had always thought of as ugly, and instead they were photographing these like plastic tablecloths that we have, and our aluminium patrams and plates, but they were bringing a tenderness to the photography and a poignant eye to it. And I was like, damn, that looks so beautiful, and I never looked at it as
Yeah.
beautiful. What if we brought our own lens to it? And then I felt like that changed a lot of things for me. I'm still on that journey. I don't have an answer.
I mean, I think like that is a really like in America, I think a lot about the fact of like who gets to be a food writer. For so long, it was never anyone who looked like me who got to be a food writer. And it was often people who grew up very wealthy in New York. They were white, they were men, like they had very, very specific experiences. So like I feel like one of the things that really matters to me is like not just the quality of the writing that I am reading, but who is writing it and not what gives them the right, but like what worldview are they bringing, and am I consuming a variety of worldviews? And I still think we as American media have a long way to go in terms of like who we treat as arbiters of
Yeah.
good taste and who we don't.
Yeah. 100%. I was
Sometimes I always felt like I was only allowed to be an authority on Indian food and nothing else, despite the fact that I speak French and studied French cuisine in college.
Yeah, it's insane. I was working on a piece about Indian cheese for Eater a year ago, and I was reading about the World Cheese Awards, and I found out that the World Cheese Awards, which is kind of like headquartered somewhere in Europe, I think Belgium or something, they don't allow, because of like the food laws around cheese and pasteurized milk and all of that, they don't allow fresh cheeses from countries like India and Brazil to even be a part of the competition. Because of, obviously they have their own rules around, what's safe and what's not. But just those rules obviously impact what cheeses get written about and who gets
Totally.
a gold star. And then like it's this whole trickle down effect.
And I think once you catch a glimpse of that, you can't unsee the sort of scaffolding that's holding up the existing power structures, right? And then it changes your perspective on everything. Yeah, yeah.
And I think that like we as food journalists know all of this, but the general public doesn't. And so part of me feels that my responsibility as a journalist is to expose those underlying power structures.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Because everyone just looks at our job and they're like, so cool, you have the best job in the world. I'm like, do I actually? Do I?
There are perks, for sure.
There are both. Yes. I'm going to say martini cheers, guys.
Cheers. But awesome. Thank you so much for this, guys. I know that we have a bit of a time constraint, so I'd like to play a quick game with you guys before we fully wrap. It's a Never Have I Ever Food Journalist edition. So if you have, you can take a drink, you can have some more breakfast oats.
Priya, quick,
and
make
then
a
tell
make a
us-
breakfast cocktail. Quick, Priya.
and then tell us about the time. But are you guys ready? Okay. Never have I ever fought hard to tell a story only to have it blow up in my face.
I'm sure this is
Yeah, why not? I feel like I did. I wanted to really work with this publication and do a review for them early on when we started food writing, and then it turned out to be the worst restaurant ever. And we had to write an honest review, and then when it came out, one of the other chefs was like, hey, in case you're looking for a place to hide out, you can hide in our restaurant basement because I know there's going to be like a target on your head. So yeah, that did not work out well.
Fair. Okay. Never have I ever interviewed a chef and fangirled very, very hard.
I guess the first time I met Mother Joffrey, that was pretty huge. That was like enormous.
Yeah, I would forget what the English language is if Mother Joffrey.
Yeah. I think the first time I met Madhu Jaffrey also, I had no words. I was just like, can we get a picture with you? That was it. And she spoke for an hour without looking at her notes and held the entire audience spellbound in complete silence. That's how good she was. Yeah. So yeah, Madhu Jaffrey tops it.
Fair enough. Okay, never have I ever stumbled across a hidden gem restaurant and kept it a secret.
I have.
All the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a place my husband won't let me write about that we go to all the time.
I fully support this. Yes.
Fair enough. So if you want to know Priya Krishna's hidden gem, just like stalk her, basically.
Stalk her husband because she's not
Stalk her
going to be
husband.
posting it.
Fair enough. And never have I ever had a tasting that changed my worldview.
Yeah, always. I love when this has happened several times.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. I feel like we do this series called 1,000 Kitchens where we go into people's homes and document their third-gen family recipes. Those have always left us because the number of times I have tasted something that has not come close to anything we've ever tasted before, that has blown my mind. So I feel like eating in someone's home is an especially special opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, there was this house that I ate in Ladakh, in Leh. And it was really beautiful. It was on this like ancient stove and like sunlight filters through the roof so that it can warm the stove before it's even actually lit. And there's like this whole ritual about it. And it was just so beautiful in terms of how they respect the hearth and what it stands for before food is actually cooked for the day.
Wow, yeah.
It's just always stayed with me and how Ladakhis look at cuisine. Yeah. It was,
I want to
It was
eat around
really
India with both of you.
Yes.
Please
I think
come.
That should be.
I'm trying to get the Times to send me to Mumbai. So stay tuned.
amazing.
Yeah. We'll just hijack you for a couple of weeks and take you around the rest of the
I'd love
country.
it.
Throw you into a sack and then take you.
I'll be like, oh, Priya
Please.
Krishna, am I?
Amazing. But thank you so much, guys. This has been truly, truly special. I love the fact that we've had this conversation and we've all been able to be so candid and just have a little space to breathe and be ourselves as food journalists.
Yeah, so fun.
So thank you so much for making the time. It's a huge honor and privilege.
Thanks for having us.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to show us some love. Hit like, drop a comment, and scribble it in chutney. We're on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever food memories live. And tell us, which dish from your childhood lives rent-free in your head?